Welcome to another session of Daily Current Affairs. My name is Aishwarya and I am representing Gallant IAS. I have with me 5 topics today. We have about an important article, an interesting article from our Hindu. We have a deep tech startup that's policy that's going on in India, Akira ransomware, ISRO rock debris that was found from Australia, and our 8 core industry is the important topic from our GS3 economy. Now moving on, we have a clean cooking oil strategy in India. Now you see, like people has been using like fossil fuels and coal for cooking. So to ensure that they get a clean cooking fuel, LPG has to be introduced in the sector. But before the LPG has to be introduced, there has to be some kind of distributors or a middleman in between the government and the people. So the first step the government took was to ensure that there is a distributor in between the part of the state or the center to the people. So that's how it started, the Gramin Vitrak Yojana that took place in 2009. The main aim of the scheme was to create rural distribution base. With this resultant, just 18% of the base was there in like 18%, only 18% distributors were there in the rural areas and the others was in the urban areas. With this introduction of the scheme, this 18% become 60%. Now in rural India, about 60% of the people, if you are taking a scale of 100, 60 distributors are present in the rural area, 40 are present in the urban area. So that was the first aim and it was a kind of success because there was an increase from base from about 18% to 60%. Now cutting chase to 2016, there was Pradhana Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. It was to improve, first was to improve the distribution base. Now it was to improve the consumer base in India. So resultantly, about 9.5 crore new households took LPG connections. With this, there was 9.5 crore new households took the LPG connection. So this also, the scheme was also a success. But now, when we are looking to our financial year 23, there was a decrease in our LPG connections. Now it showed a 0.5 negative growth rate compared to our previous financial year. 0.05% negative growth rate. Now let's look on to our what are the situations or conditions in India. If you are looking into the share of households which are using LPG, the LPG usage has increased. This was just 33% in 2011, now it's about 71% shows in our 2020. Now this has been shown by 2 of the surveys present by IRAS, that is Indian Resident Energy Consumption Survey, and CEEW, that is the Council of Energy Environment, this is Environment and Water. So that is how the increase in LPG usage has been in India from 33% in 2011 to about 71% in 2020. Now we still face some kind of challenge. We know there is war going on, so that we have constraints in how the volatile price is going, we have constraints in the crude oil availability. So these are some of the constraints, and apart from that, COVID has created loss of livelihood. With this, people doesn't have money now to buy LPG cylinders. So they are going back to the old conventional method of using fossil fuels and such, which are not very clean type of energy. Now in 2020, because of this COVID, the government had to actually shift their subsidy mechanism and have to give for the medical facilities to be in India. So the subsidy mechanism for LPG cylinders was also reduced, because of which people less people started depending upon LPG. Now to compensate this, in the financial year 21, Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana was launched. In this Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, 3 free cylinders was given to the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana users. 3 free cylinders for this old scheme, Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojanas, who are already there registered under PMUI. 3 free cylinders were given to these sector of people. Now thus the annual refill, that is, we are not buying cylinders every time. We are going to refill that cylinder only. Thus the rate of refill actually rates increased to 0.55 cylinders per active connections. But it was ensured about 24 crore cylinders was ensured, out of which only 14.1 crore were utilized. The rest was about 10 crores was not utilized. That was the financial year 21 PM Garib Kalyan Yojana launched, and what was the result of it. In September 2022, the government took another initiative to increase the nominal subsidy rates. It was given like rupees 200 per cylinders. Thus, it also ensured and improved the refill rates to 0.09%. It was earlier about 3.6. Now it got increased to about 4.09% of refills. Now the average refill rates of non-PMUI customers, there are other people who doesn't use the scheme as well but use cylinders. So the non-PMUI, that is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, who is not the users of PMUI, also their consumption has also slowed down to about 40%. And even the PMUI users, like you're required to take the refills like 1 or 2 or 3 times in a year, like we need the cylinder refill. But these category of people, the refill rate also reduced just 1 or 2. We have yet challenges. Apart from the challenges of COVID and Ukraine, we have other challenges like poor distribution mechanism. Even after getting about 60% of distribution waste, we face poor distribution mechanism and lack of home delivery. We accept that we can't go to, like, in our criteria, we can't go to their place and get our gas refilled and come back. We need proper home delivery system like we have in our urban areas. We need proper delivery system. This was not ensured in the rural area. And also low budget allocation by the government also is another challenge. Apart from this, we have a lot of important LPG, because of which there is price volatility. Lot of forex reserve goes on consumption of this import of LPG, and near doubling of LPG prices because of all these challenges. Now, what are the solutions? What solution does this author say? LPG is still a form of polluting substance. So why do we need to stick on to LPG? We can move on to other conventional sources. We can move on to other clean cooking fuels, like we can use e-cooking fuels. We have to shift from this LPG only strategy and focus on electric cooking. We can use induction cooker tops. These are some of the solutions by which we can stop our dependency wholly on LPG. Also, now in India, we have ensured that all the places, about 100% electricity connection is ensured right now to rural households and such. So this is the right time to actually push electric cooking methodology compared to our LPG. And also another rate is, if we are increasing the price of LPG, the people will start depending more on electric cooking. This can be a scenario which one method that the author suggests in the case we can adopt in an urban area. In the urban area, about 10% of the household already use electric cooking methods. If we are pushing the LPG rates a little more bit, the urban household will gradually shift to electric cooking, and then we can gradually do the strategy in rural area as well. Also, the CEEW, which I done, Council of Energy, Environment and Water, found that even if the rate of electricity per unit is very high, like ₹8, it is still cheaper than today's LPG prices, which are very volatile and rising. So with this method, we can actually reduce the dependency on imported LPG, and we can reduce the outflow of our foreign reserves. So these are some of the suggestions that are suggested by the author of this article. Now, moving on to our next. This government starts up the National Deep Tech Startup Policy. Now, first we need to know what is a deep tech. Before we know what is a deep tech, we need to know what is a shallow tech. There is two differences between a shallow tech and deep tech. If I have a laptop and I have a proper knowledge in coding and have correct internet, like available and continuous connective internet, that is shallow tech. This is most what we see in our technoparks kind of companies and all. We know coding, we have laptop, we have stable internet connection. That is the work that is done with shallow tech, but that's not the case in a deep tech. Deep tech uses our other components like advanced materials, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, our Internet of Things, robotics, blockchain, drones. These are some what deep tech is about. This is very complicated engineering process. We require a lot of fund for it, and lot of scientific innovation and discoveries is needed for this kind of deep tech mechanisms. So this is how I told you, shallow tech and deep tech. It's deep tech. Deep technology refers to those startups whose business model is based on high tech innovation in engineering, whereas shallow tech is low tech kind of innovation in engineering. Then as I told you, deep tech is AI, ML and all, machine learning and all. This is gradually disrupting our existing market system, because whatever problems we face right now, deep tech is the solution. If we need to increase our production of agriculture, the crops need to do more photosynthesis and more food production. Deep technology might be the option. If we are facing a lot of ransomwares now, deep tech might be the option. So this is gradually replacing our existing market and developing mechanisms. Also, artificial intelligence. It was present 10 years ago, but still we are in a very minute or nascent stage in developing artificial intelligence, such that this deep technology Deep tech, it takes a lot of time to roll out and reach the market phase. Thus, it requires a lot of input, lot of cost. Initially, we need lot of early stage fundings for this development mechanism. These deep techs are not done by big corporate companies and all. These are done by small companies who ensure that our day-to-day problems is solved. We can solve our day-to-day problem with artificial intelligence, machine learning, our Internet of Things. With that, these are components that could make a human life easier. So, that is what the characteristics of deep tech is. Now, the state of how is India's deep technology developing? Presently, India have about 300 deep tech startups in India, which is dabbling into a very new age technology. We have artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, Internet of Things, big data, quantum computing. These are some of the fields in which India is thriving right now. As per the NASSCOM report, this deep tech has already raised about 2.7 billion USD, and we are the venture funding, and it is about 12% of the overall startup that is in India. This deep tech computes about 12% of the overall startups that is in India. Also, India's deep tech ecosystem has grown 53%, and it is in par with other developed countries. Our Indian deep tech facility grew 53% and is in par with the other developed countries like US, China, Israel and Europe. But we still face a challenge. I told you, we have funding, we need the skilled labor, we need the talent, we need the market access for the development of this, we need the funding capitalist requirements. So these are some of the challenges India still face. Even if we have these much talent, the result or the output, it's very belated and it takes a long gestation period. Now that is in our deep tech. We have another important article called the Akira ransomware. Now recently, our certain Computer Emergency and Response Team of India gave out some alert and issues in the name of in a ransomware named Akira. Now this Akira ransomware, it targets actually both Windows and Linux diseases. It steals and it encrypts the data, then forces the victim to pay the double ransomware. Ransomware is where a person or a gang of people steal some data and actually ask the victim to pay some amount of money. Then only they will release what the data or the steal data that they have acquired. This group has an active Akira ransomware site with information of their most recent data leaks and such. This gang has a Akira ransomware site as well. So we need to know much more about this Akira ransomware. Now it is designed to encrypt data. It creates a ransomware node and delete the Windows shadow volume copies and affects the devices. It actually encrypts the data. It comes into the device, it encrypts the data, then it closes or deletes the entire Windows shadow volume and then volume copies, and it affects the whole device as a whole. It has the ability to modify the file names. If this ransomware gets into our system, it modifies a file name with an extension of .akira extension. That is how this ransomware gets its name as Akira ransomware. It is designed to close, process or shut down the entire Windows services. That makes it from encrypting files of the affected system. It uses the VPN service, the virtual private network service. I have taken this in my previous classes, where we don't have, if a person doesn't use that 2 or 3 factor authentication, with this VPN service itself, the ransomware can directly come and get in and attack it. It's like loose security you have without any factor authentication. It's a loose security, and this ransomware can come and attack it easily. And it also tricks the users in downloading files. We have heard that we should not download certain things, that it will put virus in our device and all. So this was also trick the user in downloading some malicious file. We think that it is some important articles or important files from important site, but they were actually tricking us into downloading some of their ransomwares. Once this ransomware actually infects the device, it steals the encrypted sensitive data. The group behind the attack extorts the victim into paying a ransom, a threat to release the data. If they don't pay the ransom, they threaten that they will release all the data into the dark website of it. Now, the ransomware also terminates the active Windows services, preventing any interference with the encryption process. It is designed, it won't enter into any of the program data, recycle bin, boot systems and all. It also avoids modifying the Windows system files with extensions like s.in, MSL, etc. These are some facts related to this. You need not mug up on it more. Once the sensitive data is stolen and encrypted, the ransomware, this kind of ransomware is more modified. it leaves a text behind for the victims to go, like we have attacked your system and now I am giving you a certain password with which you need to enter the Tor site. After you get to enter Tor site, we will be having a chat with you on how much payment you need to do, so that, or else we will be releasing your sensitive data in the system. That is what this ransomware site, it leaves a text box saying that we have attacked your system and we will be giving you a certain password with which you need to enter and chat with us, talk with the ransom gang and talk about the payment system or how much he will be compensating. Each victim is giving a unique negotiation password which is entered into the site and it is used to communicate with the ransomware gang. How does this ransom infect device? It could actually be spear phishing, it's a kind of a cyber attack kind of stuff. It contains an email with a malicious attachment and or else it can be a drive-by download. It's also a kind of cyber attack. These are some of the methods by which the ransomware came. Mainly it goes through spear phishing and drive-by download, which we mainly find in emails and all, by which we will be downloading some malicious downloads. Now, our certain computer emergency and response team give us some guidelines on how to deal with such kind of ransomwares. Now, we follow basic hygiene. As such, we should also follow a basic internet hygiene and protect our protocols. We have to maintain up-to-date offline backup data systems so that we won't prevent any kind of data loss in the form of an attack. Also, operating systems and our networks should be regularly updated and check that there is no virus or ransomware kind of sites or malicious files out there. Also, company must establish a base by which they could identify the kind of spams in the mails. Like the companies could use domain names, message authentication, our reporting and confrontation, domain key identification mail. These are some kind of mechanism by which the companies or the organizations could actually identify spams in the mail. Also, we should put strong password and multiple factor authentication so that we have a strong security by which such ransomware can be prevented. Also, we should have a strict policy against the use of external devices in planes so that the data address and data in transit encryption doesn't get leaked. Also, blocking attachment files like exe, pif, urf, these are some extensions which we need to block. If we see such extensions, these might be or will be sometimes malicious files. Also, periodic security audits and critical network and system, especially the data server. These are some of the mechanisms that CERT-in tells us. If we get a question about a cyber attack or something, this is a well regulated way which we can actually answer that question. We get a cyber attack question, we need some solutions or measures how to adopt it. These are some basic methods to which we can actually answer that question. Rather than writing some general answers like we should provide security, we should do the connections of the network properly, security check, strong password, you have some guidelines or advice from the CERT-in itself on how we can prevent such kind of cyber attack. So, this becomes very important. These are key terms and facts which you could mention in an actor. It will be a very boost to your answer. Now, moving on to our prelims topics. ISRO rocket debris in Australia, rules governing space junk. In my last class, I told you our India and Australia are doing a lot of space cooperation from a Cocos Island. So, such that our Gaganyaan mission base is also in our Cocos Island. So, a kind of space debris of ISRO has been found from Australia. It is actually in an uninhabited area and is identified as a part of ISRO's PSLV. Also, this is not the first time we find space debris. Last May, we can see Chinese rocket fell into the Indian Ocean. A large chunk of 25-ton Chinese rocket actually fell into the Indian Ocean. So, we actually have some UN kind of United Nations regulation mechanisms on how to treat our space debris. And also, we should know, is the space debris dangerous? It is kind of dangerous because it may actually fall in habitable areas. If it falls in the ocean also, it affects the marine ecosystem, but as such it hasn't caused any kind of serious damage yet. Now, these are there are 5 mechanisms of UN space treaties given out. The first one is the Outer Space Treaty that was signed in 1967. It based on the principles of governing the activities of state in the case of exploration and the use of outer space. Everything like after the Earth atmosphere, that is our outer space. So, there has been some kind of regulations or mechanisms on how all the countries are going to like their activities in the outer space. So, Outer Space Treaty of 1967 actually points on to that. Rescue agreement, in the rescue of astronauts. We have astronauts in our International Space Station. Even now China has a space station right now. So, we have the presence of human beings in all these space stations. So, such a if there is a need for rescue, we should have a proper rescue mechanism for the rescue of astronauts or the return of astronauts to back to Earth and all. Now, NASA is launching their Artemis mission by which they are planning to send 3 humans to moon. So, in that case, a proper rescue mechanism is needed. We have Liability Convention of 1972 where the international liability of damage caused by space object, which there is a mechanism by which if like a debris is causing damage in your area, India's debris was present in the Australian area. If that debris did cause a problem to the Australian, we are liable to pay a sum. Like this has only happened once. Like a Russian radioactive debris which actually fell on Canada, and they requested that they need compensation for it. This Russian had to pay about 3 billion Canadian dollars for that. Only this has happened only once. That is based on the Liability Convention of 1972. The Registration Convention, Convention on Registration of Object, which is launched into outer space. We have a lot of launch going on. If we were just launching about 210 satellites 10 years ago. Now we have about more than 2000 plus satellites launched per year. So that is how the rate of outer space operations is done by all countries, just not by big countries like US, China, India and Europe, but smaller countries like Israel, South Korea are also launching satellites and other outer space objects. The Moon Agreement 1979. Agreement governing activities of state on the moon and other celestial bodies. We know like we have the Mangalyaan mission, we have the Chandrayaan mission and also LUPEX mission. Like there are a lot of missions in the moon like Artemis mission. So moon and other celestial bodies also they have an agreement governing that. India is a signatory of all but didn't ratify this moon agreement. Also there is a requirement of space debris because lot of space debris are there. It is affecting the satellites and other orbital systems of India and all of other countries. So there might be a mechanism for space treaties and debris as well. That is all about our space debris mission and all. Now we have a last topic here. The weight of these sectors, like we have the 8 core sector industries. Out of 100%, there are 8 core industries in India which account for about 40.27. These are given out by the Index of Industrial Production. Okay, so these are the 8 core industries of India. You will be studying it in detail in our economy class, so I am just telling you in detail. These are the 8 core economy. There has been increasing growth rate in 7 of this economy except the crude oil, which is showing a negative growth rate of -3%. For the rest of the others, present growth rate, there has been increasing growth rate, especially in the case of coal and cement. The negative growth rate is only shown in crude oil. So it is stated that 7 out of 8 core company sectors will registered a sign of uptick, whereas crude oil was the only sector that was showing a negative growth for the past 13 months. You should also know in this like the order of the weightage. This weightage is important. You should remember the weightage like how it weightage each year or annually, how the weightage of each of this industry shifts. So these are the basic components you need to clearly know in case of your prelims and your mains as well. So that is it for today. So this has been all for today. You can get your PDF in our Telegram channel Gallant IAS. Thank you, and I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Thank you.